Okay, so since Fred, our chair, is out, I'll call the meeting to order. Kelly, do you want to call roll or somebody call roll to make sure we're all here and we have a quorum?
Yes, and I forgot that. I'll just do it from memory. So, actually,
Do you want a paper copy of
I
these?
have here.
No, thank
Brad brought an extra.
Michael Brown,
I'm here.
Abdul Hakim Salam,
Here.
Karen Jones. Here. Janice Bankston. Fred Cobb. No. Ann Hines Silvis.
Present.
Chris Diana. Jerry Moreland. Lauren Harkless. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. On our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from last time. That would be, what was the date that we met last time?
January 20th.
January 24th. Okay, so do you want to look at that for a minute, and then I'll entertain a motion to approve or revise those minutes? Gosh, they're right in front of me. Anyone want to make a motion regarding the minutes? Somebody who is here?
Move the minutes be accepted, right?
Thank you. Is there a second? Second, thank you. There's a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. We've approved the minutes. Next item on our agenda, are there any written petitions or communications brought to the commission?
No.
None, okay. And then, is there any audience participation? We have a couple people in the audience, so I'm wondering if you'd like to approach the commission and introduce yourself, say who you are.
Sure. I'm Lisa Benson. I'm the Community Services Director at the Regional Planning Commission. And I came tonight just to sit in and listen to priorities related to Consolidated Social Services. We're currently funded through our Youth Assessment Center and our Senior Services. We're doing work on both those projects, particularly the Youth Assessment Center has been a new project over the last 3 to 4 years, and wanted to thank the commission and then carry that up to the council for their support over the years. There's a lot of work that goes into that with youth related to connecting them with services and diverting them from the juvenile detention center and court services. I know that some of the priorities and the things that you guys deal with in the limited funds, it's very hard to figure out where that all goes. So I wanted to acknowledge the work that goes into that. And then also, I know that right now that I hear with the council, there's also a focus with regard to looking at mental health services related to justice. And so noting that youth also have that need and that the Youth Assessment Center does help with some of that. So just highlighting that. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for being here. Any questions for Lisa while she's here?
Can you tell us more about your organization that you work for? I don't know much about it.
The Champaign County Regional Planning Commission is a governmental entity, very wide and diverse. My division is the Community Services Division. Youth Assessment Center and the Senior Services is part of that. We also do weatherization, LIHEAP, workforce development. We are part of the Home Consortium that also does tenant-based rental assistance. That's our kind of our niche. There's a number of things that I'm not naming right now, but that's a quick shot of that.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
And do you guys have a new director coming on board?
We do. He will begin June 1st.
Oh,
We've
June
been
1st,
without a chief executive officer. Cameron Moore left April 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And Delizzo Salamoyo will be joining us June 1st. We're looking forward to that. He will offer, as we believe, great leadership.
Great. Thanks for the update.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Any other?
I'm Michelle with Habitat for Humanity. I'm just here if you have questions.
Okay. Thanks for being here. Nice to have you. Any questions for Michelle for Habitat?
We also have on the agenda under the home program, so she
Okay.
could
Yeah.
also come up and answer any questions at
Okay.
that time.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, moving into the staff report. Kelly?
Okay, you have a copy that was sent to you. So note that under HUD activity, HUD more and more sends emails versus like hard copy letters regarding information requested or anything like that. So we received earlier this month an email regarding our CABRE review that HUD completed, and there was additional information that they were requesting. And we have until tomorrow, and I'm pretty much done with the response. I just need to look over a few things and then send it off tomorrow. So, and then we also received a letter this past month, even though it was dated in December. We didn't receive it until February, regarding our fiscal year 2016 continuing care application was approved. So that this is the supportive housing program, homeless families in transition, that will start tomorrow. So that today is the end of that grant, and then it starts. It's a March 1st to February 28 or 29 if it's leap year grant. So that got approved, so we have the official letter. And then you can see other things. We, with our community development associate, we did an application to IDA for an abandoned properties program, round 2, and we received an email stating that we had received funding, so that's exciting. That is a program that is similar to the blight reduction program that we have for foreclosures, abandoned properties. It's just a different source of funding that the state has. So we're excited about that. And we are going to receive mostly what we asked for. We applied for about $75,000 and we got approved for $71,000. So so that's exciting. So now we just need to wait for the agreement to come to us, and then get that signed and everything. So another grant that we have, which
Exciting.
is that's good. And then I was on a panel with the Housing Authority to choose a developer for the abandoned townhome site. So Bryn Shore was chosen. They are the ones that are working on Highland Green, and they presented well and gave a good presentation. So that's who we decided to go with. So I believe that they're hitting the ground running. And we'll probably be applying to IDA which is the Illinois Housing Development Authority with the state, for low-income housing tax credits. IDA has decided that instead of 2 rounds of tax credits, they're doing 1 round. And so, because I'm not sure where the low-income housing tax credits will be going, the future of it. So. And that's in June, so I'm sure that as Bryn Shore works toward that, they'll be asking and requesting information. And let's see. You can see items that other staff have been doing. You can see here, Randy, our housing rehab coordinator, number of applications approved for the emergency grant, access grant, senior repair. And with the blight reduction program, we, out of 15 total properties projects, 11 are completed, 2 are in a demolition phase, and we have 2 left in the process for demolition. So we are really wrapping that up. So we just need to wait for our reimbursement back from IDA. But at least we're getting all of the items that we need to do completed. Yes.
Where are those properties, the blighted properties located? Do
Um,
you have that?
I don't have the list with me offhand, but we tried to work with our building safety division for problem properties that they keep a list of. And I think most of them are in targeted areas in the city, I think.
They're all within our community development target area. Many of them are in North Urbana. There's a few others that are in some of the other census tracts, but many of them are in North Urbana.
So, working with Habitat, we've acquired the properties if we don't own them, and then work to demolish and then green the sites with hope for that in a few years there'll be affordable housing will be built on those properties. So working with building safety, it's been really good because these are homes that there's no way they can be rehabbed or anything. So
How's that determination made?
through our inspectors, through property maintenance code, they determine that if it's salvageable or not. And that's one of the requirements for the blight reduction program is that they cannot be rehabbed. They're too far gone, I guess. So.
Sounds like the hotel.
That's a whole other.
Do you have an
program.
official comment on that, Kelly,
I
that
do
you
not.
want to offer for the record?
I do not. I do not. And then you can see the different meetings and stuff that we've attending. We've started the Assessment of Fair Housing Collaboration Group and had our first meeting basically to talk about the assessment, and our next meeting will be in June. So right now we're just meeting quarterly until it gets closer, and then we'll ramp it up and be more often. So, and then I received an email from Commissioner Jerry Moreland, and he's not able to be here because he is now an assistant coach for the Urbana High School varsity basketball. And he said that they won last night, and so they are playing Central tonight, which is why he's not here. And he wanted me to have us wish the Urbana High School varsity basketball team success in their win over Central. So
We all wish for that.
so I
It's wonderful.
yes. So yeah, they're playing very well. So I said that I would announce it. So that's my report. If you have any questions, let me know.
Any questions for Kelly? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we move on to old business. Is there any old business? There's nothing on the agenda, but is there anything?
No.
No? Okay. And the next item on the agenda is new business. And so you provided us with some background information on 2 resolutions. Do you want to give us more of the description?
Yeah, I'll turn that over to Matt. He'll do
Matt,
the
thank
staff.
you.
Sure. So this is on one of the memorandums. The first resolution is certifying Habitat for Humanity of Champaign County as a community housing development organization. The second resolution is approving an agreement to give to give Habitat funds that are set aside specifically for community housing development organizations. And for the benefit of some of the newer members of the CDC, I just wanted to sort of talk about what is a community housing development organization, abbreviated CHDO and pronounced CHODO. A CHODO is a special affordable housing developer that meets certain criteria that are dictated by HUD. Those criteria talk about how the agency's board has to be set up in a certain way, has to have a certain amount of representation of the low-income community, has to have staffing levels to allow it to be able to work on its own, has to have financial resources to be able to be a developer and to succeed at doing that. And Habitat submitted their application to be certified as a CHODO again earlier this month, and we've reviewed it, and we find that they are worthy of being certified as a CHODO. This is definitely not the first time that Habitat has been a CHODO. They've been certified since 2011 and have received many of our CHODO funds. The agreement that we are proposing to give to them would give $96,180.90. And the reason it's that specific amount is because each year our allocation of home funds from HUD is divided up into different chunks. 15% of our home allocation is set aside specifically for CHODOs. No one else can touch it, and it can't be used for any other purpose. And we've tried to talk with other agencies in the area, but right now Habitat is the only one that is able to meet the criteria to be qualified as a CHODO. So we are proposing to allocate the full 15% of our full allocation, which is all that we can allocate, all that we have to allocate to CHODOs. There are 3 projects that Habitat has proposed, 2 of which are in Urbana and 1 is in Champaign. And because we are a home consortium, or the city of Urbana does not have enough population to apply for home funds on its own, it requires a consortium between us, Champaign, and the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission to meet the criteria to become eligible for home funds. And as a result, these projects are distributed throughout Champaign and Urbana. First project is 1408 Hill in Urbana, and that will be, and I'm sure Michelle can talk about this more if you have any questions, it's a former home that's been demolished, and a new home will be built at that address. 709 Tawny Court is sort of in the Douglas Square area of Champaign, so just across the border from Urbana, and that's actually going to be a rehab activity. Most Habitat activities in recent years have been new construction, the ones that we've funded. This is actually going to be a rehab. And 1212 Hill is a new construction activity again in the North Urbana neighborhood. In the memorandum, I talk about where Habitat is at and the timelines of those, and all 3 activities are anticipated to be finished this summer. In all of these activities, you can see, we're dedicating $30,000 roughly towards each of these home builds. So there's much other funding involved in it too. Most notably the Attorney General grant, which Habitat was awarded, I believe it was 2013. It was a $2 million grant that Habitat was awarded, and that provides a lot of the developer subsidy for these homes, but there's also grants from the Illinois Housing Development Authority, the Housing Authority of Champaign County, and Yahoo, among others. So those funds are necessary to meet the 25% match that are required of any home project. We need to have a quarter of the project leveraging other types of funding sources. So before the Community Development Commission today, we have three options. The commission can recommend forwarding the resolutions to Urbana City Council with recommendation for approval, forwarding the resolutions with suggested changes, and not recommending approval of the resolutions. Again, for the newer members, we always talk about fiscal impacts of these items. Because this is grant funded, it will have no impact on the city general fund. That said, it will, of course, have an impact on the grant fund allocation that we have, and that is 15% of our 2016 grant allocation. And of course, it's important to point out that construction of single-family homes helps to build Urbana's tax base, and getting these properties back in the tax roll is, of course, a major tenet of the community, of all community development in the city. We have a consolidated plan, a 5-year plan that runs from 2015 to 2019, and that plan sets out our goals for what we're planning to do during that time period. With the grant funds, it's a HUD requirement, and this is very much in line with that plan. And because of that, staff recommends that the CDC forward both of these resolutions to the City Council with a recommendation for approval. Are there any questions?
I do have a question. On page 1 of the Urbana Home Consortium Development Organization Developer Agreement, this is, I don't know if this is nitpicky or if it's important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the 5th paragraph, it says, whereas the grantor as the administrator of a home program has authority of the under the provisions of the. I'm not sure what it's saying that that it has the authority of the. If there's nothing following it, or if that's just.
I believe that it is a typo. The agreement should say, I believe it should say the lead entity of the home consortium.
Okay.
Urbana plays the role of being the administrator of the funds and allocating them to different subrecipients, including the City of Champaign and Champaign County Regional Planning Commission.
Okay. So while this is not the language of the resolution, it seems important to make a correction to that.
Exactly.
document.
Yeah, and we will definitely make that correction.
Okay.
And tonight you read.
It is. It's very dense.
I didn't notice any others anywhere in the document.
Matt, one of the things that I always found so interesting, and I know this isn't part of this discussion, but it's interesting, and I've been thinking about it recently because of people talking about the hotel and what kind, when the city addresses these properties that are blighted, there's the demolition after the legal liens are cleared and the title is made clear. Then there's a cost of demolition, and for these houses, what's the cost of demolition typically?
These houses are really in the same neighborhood as where we do our blight reduction activities, and usually those can range anywhere from about $10,000 to about $20,000 to $25,000, and that depends on many different factors. Obviously, the size of the house, the amount of asbestos that's in the house or as the siding, that adds a lot to the costs. But it's generally not more than about $25,000.
And that takes it from whatever it is to, like Kelly said, a green lot. That you could build on.
From the house to you would never know it's there,
Empty
takes
lot.
generally about $25,000.
So when we first started talking about this, I was surprised at the cost of demolition. You know, you don't think about that when you think about a new option, but you have to make that lot clear. But I also appreciate the fact that this is all infill development. You're building in the community where we're already providing services and not on the edge of town.
And that is important.
Yeah. Any other questions for Matt? in particular about the project or the objectives, or any other discussion? Okay, so is someone ready to make a motion?
I was going to also suggest if you had a question that Michelle could.
Oh, that's right,
could
Michelle's
come up
here.
And speak if any questions.
If you have any questions.
Well, thanks for coming first.
Absolutely.
In the past, I remembered actually toured one of the Habitat houses. It was the one that's right by King's School. And I drive by there, and I'm really proud of that. It's beautiful. And sometime we should do that again. That was really a good experience to see the quality of the materials. And, you know, as it was just about finished, the family had not yet moved in. It was just about finished
We
when we
always have
went
a
into it.
dedication for the homes.
Uh-huh.
And you're more than welcome to attend the dedication. It's a great opportunity to see it before the family's in there.
I send, anytime I
You
get
do
a
send that.
anytime I get anything from Habitat, I send it out to the council and to the commission, so you're more than welcome to, yeah.
And thank you for inviting us to those dedications. Usually they're during the day, they're hard for me to get to.
Usually in the evening.
Are they in the evening?
And
Usually
the
about,
family is present.
about, sometimes about 6 o'clock.
Usually 6 o'clock in the evening.
Okay.
Is there anyone coming
I
up?
don't believe we'll be having any till May.
Till May.
April, May.
Okay.
You've had some recently that I remember sending something out. I can't remember if it was the beginning or the end of the build, but we do get those from Kelly, those notices.
I would recommend it. It's a great opportunity to see the house and to meet the family.
Yeah. Any other questions about this in particular or generally about Habitat for Michelle while she's here? Okay. Is someone ready to make a motion regarding, we can do these two resolutions together, can't we? With one motion? Yeah.
I so move.
Seconded.
Okay, and that is that we forward to the city council with a recommendation
That's
for
right.
approval?
Yes.
Okay, so there's the motion and the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, the motion passes. Thank you. Now, do you want to talk about CDBG?
Actually, I'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know who's in charge of that topic.
Keep you on your toes and switch
Okay.
around, so. So for you, it's time again for the Consolidated Social Service Funding process. Occurs every March into April, and council then decides, based on the number of applications from not-for-profits, who should get funded for how much. And this portion is our community development block grant funds that are from public service. We have also, with CDBG, we have certain pots of money as well that we have to set aside. So we have to set 15% of our funds under public service. And so we use a portion of that public service funds and add it to the Consolidated Social Service Funding Pool. Other programs that we use the public service for is our neighborhood cleanup that we do twice a year. And the next one will be coming up in May, and then in the fall. And then our transitional housing program. We also use our public service funds for that. So in the past, we have had quite a bit of funds that we were able to add to the pool, but of course, when our grant gets cut and it shrinks, then the percentage also shrinks. So hopefully, at least $5,000. We're still working on the budget. Adding $5,000 of our community development block grant funds to the main pool. And so we are then required to prioritize based on our needs and goals that are set in the consolidated plan, where those funds should be directed, what services are being provided to Urbana residents. So the applications will be available next week, be out for a month. And then we also, at council's request, we'll have presentations done. Usually it's sometime in April, but with the new council coming, we're going to propose that it will be sometime in May that presentations will be made. So, so under the options of the memo are goals and priorities needs that are referenced in our 2015-2019 consolidated plan. Looks different because this consolidated plan is now online. We had to do it online, as like all of our annual action plan, our CAPER, all that is now through our IDIS system. So a lot of the questions are pre-written, and so that's why these goals now look different. So you can see what the specific goals, providing decent affordable housing. So the first several are regarding affordable housing. Then we have coordinating with the housing authority, support services and training for low-income persons, supporting homeless needs, reduce lead exposure risk, support infrastructure, and preserve consortium neighborhoods. And then the priority needs are related to those goals, which you can see there. And then in the memo, we talk about all of those different goals and priorities and where they're being met with programs under CDBG or other grants that we have. So based on all that, we are recommending that the options for funding be support services and training for low-income persons and supporting homeless needs, because of this provides us a larger range for funding possibilities and works to address some of the needs that are not being met with other grants. So with that, any questions?
So people will be applying for these, submitting applications?
It'll be, yes, social service
Right.
organizations, not-for-profits,
Gotcha.
yes. We'll have a couple of trainings on the application, and they have about a month, to complete.
And do those particular topics align with the types of applications we get in the past? Is that something that will
we get a
appeal
broad
to
range,
these? Okay, very broad.
but what we do is once council decides what organizations get funded for how much, then we work with Cunningham Township on who will monitor and work with what particular agency, and then we always work at whatever the priorities that are set by the commission. We look at those agencies that fit those, and then at least partially fund them, because our 5,000, we try to spread it out at least through a couple of agencies. And like Lisa said, we have with the Youth Assessment Center, or in the past, Senior Services. So that's how it works.
One of the things that, one of the discussions that we've had in the past is how to list priorities that don't preclude your ability to choose a good project, so that you don't want them so narrow that then you get a project that comes in and you say, wow, we've only been thinking a little more broadly, that would have been a good thing to fund. So it does suggest priorities, but at the same time we don't want to have it defined so narrowly that it eliminates options that look good once they come in. So
Which is
kind of
why
like whether you put the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart.
And a lot, I mean, support services and training is pretty broad.
Yeah.
You could even say it's support services and or training as well. So if there's for low income, and then homeless needs, there's a lot of shelters.
So the options are all those that you've listed on page 2, and then your recommendations are the 2 that you've listed on page
Right.
4 under the recommendations.
Because page 3 lists all of the programs that support or address those needs that we have.
So are there questions about how this works for Kelly, or questions about what any of these options might mean, or why, well, you did explain why you're recommending the two that are listed there under recommendations. So are there other questions for Kelly?
Could you give us an example of a program funded in the past that would fit under support services for low-income persons? I don't have a clear mental picture of what that might look
Sure.
like. And only if you have one just off
Yeah,
the top of
let
your
me-
head.
Let me think. Because we've been doing this, the city has done this since 1996. And we've worked with it, I have since like in the last 12 years. So a lot of agencies in the community apply. Let me think.
Would that be like a supportive housing provider, kind of like Prairie Center? Somebody who offers supportive services in conjunction with housing?
It could. Prayer Center has applied. Also,
Well, like would a food pantry or something fit under that kind of support services for
It
low-income
might,
persons?
if they, example, I guess would be, you wanna, sure, come up and have a,
In history, a previous organization where I worked, I had applied, it used to be the Roundhouse Youth Shelter. And I believe we applied under that for
Low-income youth, providing support services, helping them with self-sufficiency,
Okay.
addressing any needs that they had identified. So it was support services for low income, because they were at that moment single individuals, so they fit the low income category. So I think a lot of times, a lot of the categories can be covered by many programs. And
Right.
it's really identifying what's the best niche for the program that you're applying for. I don't know if that was helpful or not.
yes, that was, thank you.
Oh, that's great,
Yeah.
thanks. It helps me to just have a little bit more of a sense of what that might mean in actuality.
I think sometimes, I remember we would sometimes click more than one category because it fit multiple categories.
Mhm.
Any other questions or discussion about what our options are?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Sure.
At the beginning of February, were you doing an assessment of homelessness and homeless need in the city? Was that, perhaps I'm mistaken, I thought that I spoke with you, Matt, about that beginning, and if there was a report or if there was anything that contributed to promoting homelessness as one of the possible support programs.
That was the point in time count
Okay.
that I was talking about, and that was at the end of January.
Okay.
And that, the data we have the data, I don't know if it's compiled and put together into a report yet.
Okay.
But when that comes out, when does that usually come out?
We're anticipating no later than May.
Okay.
So that point in time is where everybody who's homeless at that day is
Unsheltered,
counted.
well, unsheltered
Unsheltered,
homeless
okay.
and sheltered homeless who are reflected in HMIS, the Homeless Management Information System.
Okay,
So it captures both of those populations.
so it's the figure we use for homelessness in the county?
Yes.
I remember that happened.
Based on HUD's definition, sometimes we have a little bit more broad information, but that's the primary one.
Mhm.
Because the plan time is required by
Yeah.
HUD.
Yeah,
for
it's a moving
continuums of
target
care.
otherwise, so it has to be a
Mhm.
point in time.
Yeah. That's how they make their funding decisions in part, by the point in time and how it compares to the previous year.
Okay. Other questions or discussions about what the options are? Okay, does someone want to propose a motion about what we would recommend as priorities? Now, remind me, Kelly, how many priorities can we list?
How many priorities can you list?
Yes, you suggested two, but in
Right.
the past I thought we had more than two.
We
We had a whole
did.
laundry list at one point. Which kind of undermines the idea of having
Actually,
priorities.
in the past, this would have been under our previous consolidated plan.
Yes.
We had youth and seniors, special needs populations, and homeless. But the way our consolidated plan is written now, and the way our goals are set, that's why it looks different.
Yeah, because these are more issues, and those were target populations. Okay.
Yeah, these are pretty broad priorities.
Yes, they are. Yes,
Yeah.
kind of by design. So any discussion about what we might want to recommend? Someone want to make a motion?
Well, I move that we approve, as suggested by Kelly, the two options for funding priorities.
Okay, there's a motion to approve those two that were suggested under staff recommendations. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion about those two going forward as our priorities? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and so we will support the recommendations as outlined in your memo. Thank you.
Thanks, and we will certainly list that in our training,
Okay.
that this is a priority for our funds.
Okay.
So, great, thank you very much.
So the last item on our agenda is a study session, and you have the draft fiscal year 17-18 annual action plan.
Yeah, this is a very, very beginning stages of our annual action plan. So what we thought I would propose, and I don't remember if I had included these in the packets or not. So if you could take it and pass it on.
Thank you.
So, same here, pass it on. And I also made a copy of our current annual action plan.
Oh, this is on the web, too.
Is it? Okay.
This is actually.
Yeah, in your email, you included
Okay.
these two.
Included this in your email. In your email.
Oh,
Yeah.
and here's also our copy of our action plan.
Thank you.
So,
I will take one of these. I don't have
But is this on the city website?
it is.
Yeah.
As well, but I
Yeah,
thought
I have that with
hard
me.
copy might be,
Yeah, then it's right in front
good
of you.
to have as a reference. So, we're right now in our actual annual action plan for fiscal year 17-18 process. So, beginning of January, we had our public hearings, and then as part of our schedule, wanted to come and bring this and have at least, some kind of a discussion. And then we will write up a draft, which we'll bring to next month's meeting for actual review, and because then ultimately it will go to council for approval and then to HUD in May. So,
So Kelly,
Yes.
just for clarification, one of the things that we noticed last time that was different is this formatting, and that you had described last time that it's all online, so when you try to make us a nice printed copy, the formatting gets goofed up, so
Yes.
we're supposed to ignore that. And
Yes.
don't get upset about the lines that don't line up and all that kind of stuff, but I really appreciate the fact that it's all online now, and you're not struggling with
Yes.
creating this document and spending a lot of time formatting. That doesn't
Right.
seem like a good use
Yeah.
of your time.
Yeah, because a
So-
lot of the questions are already pre-populated, and we
Yeah.
just go in and
Fill in
then
the blanks.
Fill in the blanks and
Yeah.
put the information.
Yeah.
So,
So keep that in mind while you're looking through this document, as it's not really meant to be printed beautifully.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful when it's online.
yes, and it looks good in IDIS system, but yes, the actual hard copy, once you download it, it does not look as good. But so the annual action plan, and I know I've also mentioned this like in orientations, but the consolidated plan is what drives our programs, and connected to that is the annual action plan, which is a yearly plan that we do specifically for our community development block grant, our home funds. So, and then, of course, I mentioned about the CAPER, which is the year-end report. Also included is citizen participation plan. So that's where we have all these public hearings. At some point, we will also have a public hearing. It looks like probably next month there'll be a public hearing as well. So on this page, it talks about the annual action plan, and these are the regulations. So stating what goes into the executive summary, which is objectives and outcomes that are identified, plus we evaluate past performance. Summary of our citizen participation, so it'll be listing all of the public hearings that we've had, who's attended, if anyone attends, what was said, and then who did we consult. In our consolidated plan, that was a year-long process of consulting with different groups about different needs to gather information. So we'll also have to look at resources and objectives, activities, outcome measures. So I also provided writing measurable goals. This was a HUD document, so that's so they look at objectives should be SMART, so should be specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound. So, and then it gives an example of what a SMART goal is, how this is an example about that this agency will use a certain amount of CDBG funds to preserve and maintain affordable housing. That's an example of a SMART goal. So, with that, I just open up for any kind of discussion, any input, any suggestions regarding. Right now, we have our housing rehab programs with our CDBG, so it's emergency grant, access grant, senior repair, which are one of some of Randy, our housing coordinator, his programs. Our public service, we have our transitional housing, our neighborhood cleanup, twice a year. And then we also have our property acquisition, and that's what we use to acquire properties and clear, and then give those properties to Habitat for using the home fund. So that's one way that we use CDBG and home together. With that, any comments or questions or about anything so far? It's, like I said, this is just a real general kind of beginning the process, kind of getting, some feedback.
What do you think will be some of the biggest changes from the previous year's plan? Do you have a sense of that at this point in time? And if not, that's
right. Well, one change I could think of, it depends on how much funding we get. So that would affect maybe the numbers that we serve in our programs. Other than that, I don't know really any other changes, but go ahead.
It also kind of depends on what projects come our way. With Highland Green, our current rental project they're working on, we ended up committing $500,000 mix of home and CDBG to that. But that project had been, I don't know, it was first thought of in 2005, somewhere around there. And most of what they were waiting for was getting approved for low-income housing tax credits. And we have a couple of other projects throughout the city like that that are sort of in limbo right now. But if those projects are available, are ready for funding, that can dictate how we use them as well. So we may have a couple of different large multifamily projects that we have to dedicate home and CDBG funds for, or it could be a decade before we do it again. It's just really hard to
Where's the
tell.
holdup?
It's the state delivers tax credits to the large multifamily developers, and we have no control over how or even if the state gives them that money. And without the tax credits, it's very difficult to develop large rental projects like that.
It can be very expensive without these credits and all the different financing that they get from Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago, other funding sources. So.
So over time, the objectives of HUD really don't change. The objectives are to provide safe and affordable housing for low-income people in places where they have access to schools and jobs and whatnot. So it's really, I'm thinking about your question, which is an interesting question, but I'm just thinking about HUD's objectives. They really don't change that drastically over time.
Yeah.
And maybe the most change comes in what the opportunities are. Where can we make those investments and get the most back in terms of what the city needs and objectives are for the people who are living here.
Yeah, HUD does have 3 national objectives that for CDBG. So
What are the 3 national objectives?
benefiting low and moderate income
Uh-huh.
residents, urgent need, and slum and blight. And it seems that our focus has been on the benefiting low and moderate income residents.
Yeah.
No, and you mentioned HUD goals not changing that often.
I
We
mean,
have a-
broadly.
Yeah, we have a new administration
do.
that seems
Yes, we do.
interested in changing a lot of things. Kelly, is that something that you're monitoring or worried about in any way in terms of what it could mean for our own action plans going forward?
Definitely monitoring. There's all kinds of webinars from, because I'm on a lot of listservs for like the National Low Income Housing Coalition. There's Housing Action Illinois, and so a lot of these housing organizations are having webinars on how to navigate through the new administrations, which I think are still being defined. I know there's a new HUD secretary, but I don't know if he's been actually appointed yet. So, Dr. Carson.
Yeah, has Carson
so
been
What
appointed?
is going to happen with the secretary?
that's a good question. We are definitely monitoring that as well. So, at this point, we don't have a whole lot of information about that. So.
And you said that you've been doing this for 12 years, so you've gone through at least an administration shift. Is there a time delay, do you recall, or do you know just from your own experience, between committed funds? Can we anticipate having a full fiscal year? Can we anticipate having an entire commitment with no alterations during that period of time, so that the objectives remain clear for us on a year-by-year basis?
Right. Well, actually, that's a good point. Every year, HUD submits or sends out a memorandum, what they call guidance on submitting consolidated plans and annual action plans for fiscal year whatever. So they did send one out mid-December for guidance on submitting annual action plans for fiscal year 2017. The federal fiscal year runs October 1st to September 30th. So they said, and so they have done this every year. They send out this notice, and they said the purpose of this notice is to instruct all community development block grant and home investment partnerships and others regarding the timing of the submission. So it gives instructions regarding costs incurred and informs there might be waivers. on revision of submission dates, procedures. So apparently, they're stating that Congress has not completed appropriations process at the time of this. So they can't predict what funding will be. And so they can't even say how many grantees or which program year start dates will be subjected to any revised procedures. So regulations, though, state that we have to submit something, I think it is by August or September, no later than. So basically, they're just stating, do not submit anything until allocations have been announced. Some years they've been announced as early as January, and some as late as May or June. It just depends on Congress, because Congress is the one who determines what agencies will get funding, and then HUD from there determines, based on population and formulas and the census and all that, who's going to get, how much funding. So, so they're giving it, and they give examples of if you're a grantee from such and such program year, that you might have until a certain date to submit. So, or you might need to postpone. So, so every year they do give guidance on how to and when to submit, particularly if Congress has not made any allocation. So, does that answer your question?
It does. During the periods of time, say 2010 to 12, especially when we were having only continuing resolutions as a federal budget, did you have any delay? Was there any delay in disbursement or?
And there was.
There was, okay.
I think there was.
And
Because then I think also when there was a sequestration also, and that affected HUD, Chicago field office, so, which then affected us, not that we had the time, we were like out of work, but it delayed us in submitting and receiving information from our HUD rep or any questions. They said we have to stay home, we can't have any contact, and so if we had questions about anything, we weren't able to contact them. So that affected us. And it also then it affected when the funds were going to be available. So, yeah. So continuing resolutions can also do that, can affect as well. Yeah.
So a follow-up on that, since we prepare the anticipated goals and then there's an evaluation of satisfactorily achieving those goals, to what extent would that disruption or question about funding and when allocations are made impact future ability to get committed funds? Because, for example, if you fail to use your funds, then they can adjust how much you will be allocated in future years, if I understand correctly from what I've read. So is there any challenge in a transition like this, an administrative transition and a maybe significant transition in the way that HUD might work? Is there any reason why we shouldn't just go ahead and create all the same SMART goals now, either out of concern that we will overshoot and not meet our intended goals, or undershoot and then in the future lose that funding? Is there any reason to be apprehensive? I'm asking you, I guess, for your professional experience in there, because I don't know.
Right. That's a good point. In thinking, I mean, we've had a lot of similar goals since I've been working here. So usually once it's submitted, HUD reviews, and I don't recall any time that HUD has never approved our annual action plan or our goals. Okay. And then when we do our consolidated annual performance and evaluation report, then we have to go and tie it back to our annual action plan and how the goals were met. So, and then if it wasn't met for whatever reason, then we just explain why it hasn't been met. So, example would be the review that was just done for last fiscal year that we received. And there were some of our goals that were not met. We had zeros, and so we had to explain why we had no, zeros. And it was basically that some of it was related to rental housing that is in the process of being built and is not done yet, or properties that are going to be rehabbed, but they're still in the beginning stages, so we have no hard numbers yet. But stated, we'll be stating to HUD that once those units are constructed or rehabbed, we would have the numbers that we can then let them know and update. So,
Can't you carry over funds as well, which gives you some flexibility when things are
we can do,
finished? So-
yes. But we also, at the same time, we have, with CDBG, we
Right.
have timeliness,
Right.
which is run every May. So we have to make sure that we spend an appropriate amount of funds so that we are under the 1.5. And we have every year been at least 1.5 or less. Last year we were like at 1.44, so we did meet it. However, HUD would also note that you might want to try to be a little lower than that and not be right at which we feel that we will be. We'll have definitely met that because of the money that we put into Highland Green and other projects. So I don't see a concern for timeliness. I rambled on, and so now did I answer
was
your
great.
question?
Yeah,
Or do
you
you
answered my
have a
question.
follow? Okay.
And so it sounds like if we set a specific goal and we don't meet the goal because of some kind of drastic funding change, that would be a very reasonable answer to offer for why we didn't meet this goal. Anticipated this money, no money was available,
Right.
therefore we did not meet this goal. Do you think that HUD would understand that would be an explanation they accepted?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay.
Well,
Great. Well, not
Plus-
great, terrible, but glad
Right.
they would
Yes,
accept it.
particularly
Yeah.
if we estimate that we're going to get about the same amount that we did this year, and then find that no, it got cut, therefore we wouldn't be able to serve as many people, and that would be our answer. Of course, one year I think we actually got an increase, which we weren't expecting, and therefore we had to amend the annual action plan, and therefore we were able to serve a few more people, which was good. So it's hard to say how much we'll be receiving.
Right.
So
This is quite a process to have all these moving parts come together and have the property ready and the budgets allocated and people get their firms get their tax credits and everything has to come together at once for it to happen.
yes.
So,
So how do you do it, Kelly? What's the
I have
secret?
Matt who
Oh.
helped to coordinate, particularly with.
and this
with
is an
Highland Green.
impressive operation
Yeah.
here to
Yeah.
see. I mean, we see like a little bit of what you guys do,
Yes.
but it's really,
At one point, when I
Good
first
work.
started with the city, we had like 6 people in our department, in our division, and we're now to 3.5. So, and yet we still get, which is something we know we still get our work done. We get it done. So, which is good. So.
it is good.
So, anyway, so that's, so we, if you want to review, take, and then contact me with any suggestions, emails, or when we bring a actual hard, like a draft, then going over that draft and making suggestions based on the information that I've given you, we can certainly do that, or.
And then you also have public discussion about the plans too. That
Yes,
would be,
yes,
we could
there'll
attend
be a-
those as well.
Yes, well, there actually will be, according to the schedule, there will be a public hearing next month, which we do before we have the actual meeting.
Okay.
So we'll send notice out so that participants, agencies, and residents can come and.
So typically they come at 7 and we have the public hearing and then as
The
soon as
meeting
that
will-
finishes,
then the meeting will
the
start
meeting
right after
starts. So
that.
our meeting starts a little bit after 7, whatever time that ends
Yes.
up being. So that was the last item on our agenda. Are there other
Yes.
questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Please. Thank you. All in favor? I guess we don't need a vote on that, do we? We don't. We just, the business is over, we're adjourned.
All right.